Hi friends, welcome to the final video in this series where we are going to talk today about reorienting to your own life, work, and relationships, as well as to yourself in the aftermath of these journeys that we walk. For me, I know there was this misconception that I would rise up and come back from the really deep, dark, hard parts of the journey and just step back into my life. Even though I knew I had been changed, I didn't realize how truly altered to my core I had become through my loss, through the transition, through the journey, through the many, many deaths and rebirths throughout, and even through the choosing to rise up and come back. I really transformed on a deep, deep level. In one of my favorite books, The Last Word on Power, the author Tracy Goss writes about how there's a difference between change and transformation. So change is a matter of doing. What are you doing? What are the actions that you are taking to create a change in yourself, in your world, in your environment, based on what already is known and true and real for you? Transformation, on the other hand, is really about altering the way that you are being in the world, truly deeply at your core, how you are operating, the beliefs that you hold, the way that you engage with the world, not just in what you are doing, but how you carry yourself and who you are in each and every moment, and how you operate from that deep internal knowing of who you are and what you're working to create. I love this so much, this distinction between change and transformation, because these journeys that we walk, especially in the aftermath of loss or trauma or big life transitions, they transform us. They alter who we are at our core. So even if we attempt to show up and do things in the same ways to create change through action, we can't do that. We can't operate the way we did before because we are a different person in ways big and small. I remember when I was at the point where I felt like I was really able to start stepping back into my life and especially my work, I had this experience that I described as bumping into walls where there used to be doors. So I could remember who I was before. I had clear memories of that, especially with my PTSD being resolved to the degree that it was, but I couldn't function that way. It was familiar, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to be the person I was before. I didn't even know how to show up in my own business the way I had before. Everything was familiar, but it didn't feel like me anymore, and I simply couldn't do the things that I used to do before. This was so incredibly frustrating to me because I didn't know what else to do. I wanted to create things, especially in my business, and I could remember doing them the ways that I did before, but I couldn't operate that way anymore. Even if I could see it and visualize it clearly, I didn't function that way, and I simply couldn't do it. And it was the most frustrating experience. I felt like attempting to get back to who I was before and get my business back to where it was before. It was like slamming my head into a brick wall over and over again. I just couldn't do it. What I really had to learn was discernment between where is it just that I need to learn how to get back. I need to retrain myself, my brain, my body, my way of being to get back to how I did things before because it's important to me. And when, which was more often than not, do I need to turn and walk in a completely different direction and learn a totally new way of being because there simply was no way to get back to how I did it before. I just wasn't the same person anymore. That act of discerning was incredibly challenging, and it was so important for me to step back and, again, with the hero's journey, get a sense of who was I before, who was I really, and who am I now, with also considering where am I headed from here, what is it that I want to create now, and having all of that information from the journey allowed me to say, in order for me to step into what comes next, I have to let go of these certain ways of being, these certain beliefs, this attachment to who I was before, and step into whatever comes next. There was a lot of retraining my brain, my body, myself about what I need to be doing to step into what's next. There was a lot of learning new things, forming new neural pathways, really understanding my brain and how it works, as well as how we're altered physiologically when we go through the things that we go through, so that we can learn to step into new ways of being, because we're such creatures of habit, and we form these deep grooves in our brain and our way of being and our nervous system that things become habitual. And when suddenly you can't operate that anymore, it's the most frustrating experience. So really learning to understand myself, who I was becoming and what I wanted to create, along with understanding and having the tools and resources to retrain myself, to let go of the attachment to those old ways of being, those old beliefs, those old patterns, those old neural pathways, and form new ones. My invitation for you today is to notice. Just notice where you're going through your day-to-day and you're finding yourself frustrated or sad or worried and confused that you don't function the way that you did anymore, that you're not sure you can get back to who you were before. Those are all opportunities to look more closely and start practicing discernment between, is this even who I am anymore? Is who I am in this moment and who I'm becoming, does it fit with the way that I used to do it? Or do I need to turn and walk in a new direction and learn an entirely new way of being? And what might that way of being be, so that I can do this with more ease and grace? There's not a right or wrong answer. It's not black and white. When it came to my brain, when my brain stopped working from the PTSD, so many people told me, maybe this is just the way your brain is now. Maybe you shouldn't be frustrated. You should just learn to accept it and be with what is. And while I know they were trying to help me with the frustration and with the tension I was experiencing, I wasn't going for that. There was no way that I was going to settle for my brain functioning at such a low percentage of what it did before. I knew that if my brain had been rewired overnight, that I could wire it back. It just might take time. It might take a new understanding, a new way of being. So that was a moment where I didn't turn and walk in a different direction. I didn't try to learn a new way of being around, my brain doesn't work anymore, so now I show up this way and this is who I am now. I said, no, I want to get my brain back. And I did the work to overcome all of the obstacles, all of the blocks, all of the PTSD, so that I could regain my brain. But there were a lot of things that I just had to let go of. The way that I show up in my business, the way that I make sense of and organize and process information is completely different. I can't market my business the way I did before. I can't even write the way that I did before. There are so many aspects of who I am that shifted so deeply throughout my journey that I had to just learn a new way of being. There was no going back. I simply couldn't be who I was before. You are the only person that will know the difference, and that comes with learning to trust yourself and your body and your inner knowing and your wisdom, and having a clear sense of, where are you on your journey? What is the next step for you? Who are you in this moment compared to who you used to be, and who are you working to become, so that you can make those choices in a way that is real and right and true and aligned for you? Just pay attention. Where do you feel like you're bumping up against walls where there used to be doors? Where are you frustrated with yourself because you can't be who you were before? And how can you start that process of discerning for yourself between where do you need to do the work to get back, and where do you need to just turn and walk in a completely new direction? That's what I have for you today. I will be back next week with another video. Thanks for watching.